Welcome to Madame Raven's. This way to the library. She's been expecting you.
Hello, darlings. Today, as you can see, I am premiering some new artwork that I had Penny Tales up to for me. Please visit her channel and her Twitter and give her a subscribe and a follow. She does such beautiful work. I will play the speed painting during this wonderful story, which is part 4 of Unicorn Smoke's story with the unicorn. This one is The King's Royal Court. Well, I was correct. Everything was to happen at sundown. I was in a real jail cell now, and I couldn't tell where they had brought Roshan. I didn't think she was far from me, as we were to be tried at the same time. But maybe the steel bars and thick walls blocked her thoughts. It was a healthy walk from the cells to the courtroom, so I expected someone to come for me soon. I was correct again. With this, I was starting to believe that my plan would work. I knew I could pull it off, but everything had to be a perfect series of events. I went over each step of my plan in my head, mumbling to myself as the guard mumbled at me. Every couple of seconds, he jerked my arm to get me to move faster. I admit I was taking my time, but they don't know what it's like to walk with your ankles shackled. The sunset was a beautiful shade of red, and I soaked it in thinking this was the last time I would see it. I'd been to the castle, but never talked to King Quinn or even been to the royal court room. I was still surprised at the size of the castle. The steps up the front seemed to go on for miles. It felt like it took more time to get up the steps and into the courtroom than it did walking to the castle. I was confused when we walked because there wasn't anyone in there. It was me, Roshan, and Captain Reinhardt. He is one of the ones who doesn't care for me. I'm only 17, and he says I've already wasted my life, so I'm sure he's glad I'm here. I turned to ask him what was going on and why King Quinn wasn't there, but before I could speak, his fist hit my face. I admit it only took one hit to knock me out. He may be as strong as an orc. I woke a while later, wiping blood and drool from my chin. I did my best to sit up. People were yelling at me to stand up, but I'm not sure who it was. You already know my eyes wake up last. As my vision leveled out, I saw that the person yelling at me was someone I had never met. King Quinn was slouched over his throne. I also noticed as I looked around the room, it was the two of us and the two of them. Captain Reinhardt has left as well. Every window in this room is stained glass, accompanied by large golden chandeliers. Each chandelier held enough candles to keep the room a little warmer than most places. I reached out to put my hand on Roshan, forgetting about the chains, but they were gone. I know they figured at this point I couldn't run. I suspected it even though we were only 4 bodies in this room. Captain Reinhardt was waiting for me on the other side of the door. The man standing with King Quinn didn't introduce himself. Why would he? No, instead he just started yelling again. Something about not bringing the unicorn back sooner and so on. I already knew the long and short of what he was going to say to me. What bothered me was that it looked like King Quinn was sleeping. Like I was so unimportant that he couldn't even keep his eyes open. I looked to Roshan, but she didn't even blink. I felt that she knew something that I didn't realize yet. There was food and drink on a table next to the throne. It was barely touched. The pieces were there. I just couldn't solve the puzzle. After close to 30 minutes, Rashawn finally spoke. The first time she said it, it caught me by surprise. The second time she said it, my hands started to tremble. The third time she said it, I put my plan into action. That's what she was telling me. It's time, she said. I stepped forward and my fingers wrapped around her horn, and it snapped easier than I thought it would. That was it. As far as I knew, unicorns were extinct. In one swift motion, like throwing a spear, I hurled the horn at King Quinn. It howled as it broke through the air, not quieting until it hit him in the right eye. My throws always pull to the right. I think it's the way that it was spinning. Blood oozed down his face. The man that was yelling at me bowed his head and left through a back door. I was so confused. Something was going on, and I couldn't figure it out. It was too much to think about, so I jumped on Rashawn, ready to fight our way out. She trotted over to the door and paused for a moment, as to ready herself for battle, before she knocked the door down. I had no weapon, but I raised my fist. Captain Reinhardt was there, but he no longer looked angry at me. There was some kind of relief in his eyes. He pushed past us into the royal courtroom, taking his time getting to the throne. I watched him pull the horn from the king's face, and he motioned for me to join him. And to be honest, if Rashawn hadn't said the same thing seconds earlier, I wouldn't have. Even if I had protested, I wasn't in control of where she walked. So we made our way back to Captain Reinhardt to hear what he had to say. We were like 10 feet away when he started speaking. He said something like, "Did you know more and more rumors about King Quinn were being spread?" Of course. I had heard most of the rumors, but he went on to say that they were getting closer and closer to the truth. That King Quinn was being pushed out of the throne. The people were revolting. They didn't want him as king anymore. This made sense too. I still wasn't fully understanding what was going on, so I asked. Captain Reinhardt informed me that the king was dead. After the captain had knocked me out, the king was poisoned. He also told me that he could tell everyone that I had killed the king, that I courageously saved the kingdom. But that was a lie, obviously. He wanted to make me out to be a hero. I'm no hero, friends. I didn't want all of that. All I wanted was to find a bed and sleep. All of this hurt my head, and when I tried to think about it, Captain Reinhardt said we could stay at his house for a few days, but after that I would have to make a decision. I knew he was going to ask me to hunt someone else. He knew I was good at it. I couldn't refuse the offer of a bed, though. We walked in silence to his house. It was a standard house for a guard, but I thought the captain would have something a little nicer. Not a lot happened after that. We talked a little and ate some food. He asked what it was like, my journey here. Then I took my turn asking him questions. Neither of us ready to talk about the dead king. To be honest, the one thing I was wondering was, who killed him, if not me? Though I suppose it didn't matter now. Then again, I didn't want to know because information like that will get you killed next. The next morning, the sun was shining. I mean, like, really shining. For the first time in years, I stepped in a puddle. The snow started melting, and that is a sight no one has seen in so long. There was green grass and red roses. Birds sang across the city, and people were coming out of their homes in shock. Some of these kids didn't know a world without snow. If I was a couple of years younger, I wouldn't either. Captain Reinhardt left for duty before the sun had rose. He said we were free to eat whatever we wanted, which was nice. I didn't want to do anything today but rest and eat. After 3 days, he kept true to his word, and upon arriving home after his day of patrol, he asked me to make a decision. He asked that I stay and work with him. He wanted me to help him hunt people, just as I predicted. But one thing I didn't predict was what he told me last. He told me that he wanted to train me to be a guard. As you expect, I didn't know what to say. I felt my cheeks burn from blushing. No one had ever offered me something like this. He never had a son or any child for that matter. You can't have a family in this line of work, he told me, his gray hair and dim blue eyes pleading with me. Since my parents died, no one but Roshan showed that they cared about me. I thought about what he said about telling everyone. I killed the tyrant King Quinn and still didn't want that, but there was something that no one but me and Roshan would ever know. The king's death was a necessity, but like I mentioned before, in order to lift the curse, the unicorn population had to equal to or less than 0. By breaking off her horn, she was no longer a unicorn. She was nothing more than a white horse with a bump above her nose. I would never tell anyone that. I figured that out, and that I didn't have to kill her, too. I may not have killed the king, but I had my hand in clearing the clouds from over the land of Rhea. The next couple of days I would spend learning from Captain Reinhardt and Roshan. He knew I had my talents, but I had many weak areas too, that he wanted to work on before my first job. He told me that training would take as long as I wanted it to. I didn't understand that at first, but now I know he meant that the harder I tried, the quicker it would be. As far as anyone else in the town knew, he was training me to be a guard. But we had other reasons, and we told no one. If people learned that I was hunting for criminals, no one would trust me. And we couldn't have that. The training regiment changed every day. Captain Reinhardt told me that was to keep me on my toes. And that it did. It also kept me on my rear end a lot. For now, life was good, but I knew that would change with my first job. So quoth this raven. Thank you once again, my darlings, for coming to see me in my little chateau. I don't get out much these days, as many of us don't. But it does mean the world to me. Why else would I be reading these stories, if not for you? Special thanks to my membership and Patreon supporters: Creepy Clown Girl, Unicorn Smoke, Ermin Case, Darren and Jennifer, Laura, Mutant Artificial Intelligence, Tabby Cat, and of course, Charlotte Emerson and Cortez Williams. You guys are amazing. Have a lovely day, my darlings.